currently the sheriff of Kendall County. That's where I grew up. I grew up in a little town called Oswego. At the time, we were about 2,000 to 3,000 people, and since then it's about 35,000. My mom and dad still live in the same house that I grew up in. And I was about 15 when I decided that I wanted to be a police officer, and I just never looked back. When I was little, I always liked helping out other people and kind of sticking up for the one that everybody picked on and tried to friend them and stuff like that. And I've always been somebody that wanted to help other people out. So it's just been a joy to raise my family and live in the community where I grew up. And you kind of have when you're an elected official as a sheriff, you kind of have a say in the safety and where the resources go. But being a part of that community, by talking with your friends and neighbors and really embedding yourself in the community, that you really know what they need. Well, I first was hired as sheriff in December of 1990 here at the Kendall County Sheriff's Office. I served there for a year and a half, and then an opening came up at the village of Oswego, where I grew up in that town within the county. And I went there in July of '92, and then I worked my way up through the ranks and through various assignments. There were some opportunities there to be undercover narcotics officer for 3 years, assigned to the Illinois State Police, and then a detective, and then working with the kids in the schools, and then a detective sergeant, and then I worked my way up to a captain, and then eventually became the police chief in 2003. Now, in that same time period, not only was I busy in taking different assignments on my job, but also I started attending college again. Prior to entering the law enforcement, I did earn an associate's degree from our community college. And then I went on in 95 to 2000 to get my undergrad, and then 2000 to 2003 to get my master's. So it was really kind of a dual path, not only with education, but also on the job experience and training. And then my sheriff that hired me announced he was going to be retiring. And so I needed a challenge. Being a sheriff versus a police chief, the sheriff has a greater responsibility with the jail, with the courthouse. You have more of a say of the public safety as a whole within the county. So I really wanted to take on that challenge. So I was fortunate enough to be elected as sheriff in 2014, and I've loved every day of it. Favorite part about being the sheriff is when I'm out in the public and I'm approached by a community member and they say, I had an interaction with one of your deputies and this is what they did, and I just want to let you know that they changed my life, or they changed my son or daughter's life. That is the biggest pleasure that I get in this job, and my favorite part. And it happens often. And even in today's society, where a lot of your major cities, and you see in the news, they're down on police and defunding the police. In my county, it is exactly the opposite. I really think that movement and that nationwide movement has had a reverse effect in my county, and they're more supportive than ever. Coming from December of 1990 to current, I have not read about or researched more technological advancement in this profession, because we went from, if you had a pager, boy, you were on the cutting edge in 1990, and now everybody has a phone. You can talk to everybody. Everybody has a computer. You have our smartphones, where before, when we were out there on our radios and talking to dispatch, now they can just email us a picture of the person's digital image, so we know, yes, this is a person we're dealing with, or no, they've been lying to us based on their driver's license photograph. You get so much resources that you didn't have before. Look at cameras. When I got on the job, we were using 35 millimeter. One of my classes at the Waubonsee Community College was you had to take photography, crime scene photography, and you had to take the film from the canister and then spool it onto the reel and then develop the film. Now, in your phone, you have the ability to do videotape and take pictures and email them And before we had Polaroids where you'd have to sit there and fan them, and to expedite the processes of the film. So those are just some of some of the technology that we've had advanced, let alone the computers. When I first got on the job, we still had a typewriter, and it was carbon copy of 4. And when you typed out your complaint, if you made a mistake, you had to put whiteout on all 4 of the copies. And now, if you make a mistake, all you have to do is backspace, delete, and go forward, and then print it off on a computer. So the advancement in this last 31 years, I have not seen that in law enforcement. The less lethal weapons that we have now, instead of either it's going to be a fight and you're going to use a baton, now you have tasers and CS, the gas to make their eyes blink. And you have beanbag guns where you can do longer distance, where you can stun them and use that less than lethal in order not to take someone's life when it is a very life-threatening situation that they're putting you in. You keep, whenever you see even the littlest work, but it's really a good outcome, you make sure you reach out to them, whether it's a text message or an email, or give them a phone call and say, hey, listen, I saw you did that last night, or I saw you did that the other day on your shift, and I just want to say thanks. That's why we're here. Let's keep our eye on the prize. Let's make sure that we keep serving the way that we took our oath to do. And you recognize those little things, and it's easy to recognize big accomplishments, but when you recognize the day-to-day stuff with your staff, it really keeps them motivated. And then you have to instill that within your first line supervisor in order to make sure that they are showing somebody that they're appreciated on a daily basis or a weekly basis. And if you keep doing that, and when something comes out negative in the press, you tell them, we don't have that here. We haven't experienced that because we've maintained a good level of service to our community, and let's keep that work up, and let's avoid a situation that's occurred somewhere else, and let's make sure that we police each other. If we see one of our coworkers doing something wrong, we have to bring it to their attention. Hey, you kind of handled that, you kind of lost your temper with that person, and we need to keep that in check. If you're having a bad day, let your supervisor know, and they can put you on desk duty for a while, or just let you de-stress and or figure out what the problem is, or offer to get them help. So it's really a circle of what you need to do in order to keep that person healthy mentally and physically. First of all, I fall back on my family. They're there for me every day, in and out. I really can confide in my wife, which makes it wonderful for me to do, and it's really non-judging. I also focus on my church and my faith in order to keep that. I pray a lot, for guidance. And I also call my fellow sheriffs or my fellow police chiefs that I work with, because even though a sheriff has a greater responsibility as a police chief, because we have more duties that are put to us in the state legislature or the state laws, we call upon them because a lot of our similar situations, dealing with personnel or dealing with something that happened in your community, I call upon them and run a what-if scenario by them. And I may call one person, I may call two. Sometimes I may call a sheriff if I've known that they've been through something similar and what they do. Much like our training here at the Sheriff's Conference, you guys will bring in trainers that will talk about a shooting that happened in their jurisdiction and what they did, personnel issues and with what they did, and really educates us on how to deal with it. So we're constantly reevaluating. When we see something happen, we look, okay, where could I look to for a resource? Or if we've been through it before, it's similar, we can draw back to that previous experience. When I first got here as sheriff, they had the new sheriff's conference, and they sat us down. There was 41 of us in the room, and they sat us down and they said, listen, you're from all different parts of the state, all different political backgrounds, but when it's all said and done, you're all sheriffs. So drop the R and drop the D labels, Republican, Democrat, it really doesn't matter. And the bond that we created at that time with the 41 of us, and how quickly we really cling to one another, so to speak, or really had the respect for one another. We talked about our backgrounds and what we had all been through. I bonded quickly with a lot of sheriffs here, and that has really brought me full circle. And until somebody goes through that, I think if I would have came in by myself and not had that experience, where I could look at all these other new sheriffs, and then there was even some retiring sheriffs there at the banquet, and talking with them and exchanging phone numbers, and knowing that whenever you call them, they will call you back. And they stress that in that training. When you see a sheriff calling you, you need to call him back or her back right away, because they're reaching out, because they need you. And not one time have I not received a phone call back from a sheriff in a timely manner. And you have that brotherhood when you come up through the ranks, and you go on a call together, and you know that this is a dangerous call, and this person is right there with you, and you guys back each other up. And that's when it starts. But when you're at the administration level, and it's lonelier there because the buck stops with you, knowing you can call a sheriff, and when it starts to happen, when you call a sheriff and they call you back right away, it just grows that brotherhood and that bond. A lot of the crises that you and your families go through, and a lot of the issues that you have raising kids or your marital issues, us as police officers, we go through the same things. Our family is no different. We struggle sometimes with decisions and family crisis and family matters and arguments about petty things within the house. Police officers go through the same thing, and then we're called to go and help you out. So don't think that if a police officer comes there that we're any better than you. We're not. We go through the same struggles daily as you do.